Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 643. Klein's version of Magic Mirror Divination. With the curtains drawn tightly and all the lights extinguished in the room, Audrey followed the requirements of Magic Mirror Divination and completed the corresponding preparations. Of course, she didn't specially choose a specific time, as there wasn't any need to be that troublesome when getting Mr. Fool's help. Looking at the candles and reflected light in front of her, as well as her reflection, Audrey picked up a bottle of extract in excitement and some unease. She then dripped a few droplets onto the dim flame. As the mild and refreshing fragrances filled her nose, for some baffling reason, Audrey recalled the times when she was still a mysticism enthusiast. In the beginning, she would also commit all kinds of mistakes. She would realize that she had forgotten to prepare the essential oils and extracts that would please the deity at a critical moment during the ritual. All she could do was make do with perfume, and her attempts no doubt failed. In fact, according to the information which Mr. Fool shared, he would similarly respond even if I had used my perfume. Audrey exhaled slightly and, using cogitation, calmed herself down. She knew that her uncontrolled thoughts weren't ordinary behavior coming from her. The tiny bit of anticipation and nervousness had been magnified by lie. After making sure she was in an optimal state of mind, Audrey clasped her hands and pressed them to her mouth and nose as if in prayer. She sincerely chanted softly, "The fool that doesn't belong to this era. The mysterious ruler above the gray fog. The king of yellow and black who wields good luck." The secret incantation gently echoed 7 times as Audrey felt the surrounding darkness had the inclusion of something which was somewhat indescribable. It was like an undercurrent hidden beneath the water surface. Looking up, Audrey reached out her right hand and passed it through the still candle flame and stroked the mirror's surface from top to bottom. At this point, the magic mirror divination was basically done. If the mysterious and unknown existence's interest was piqued, it would respond through the mirror. Above the gray fog, in the ancient and magnificent palace, Klein looked at the crimson star representing Miss Justice expand and contract as it rippled with an illusory glow. Finally, it was tainted with a nearly black feeling of serenity. It condensed into a circular halo the size of a mirror that appeared to lead to the outer world. It's different from past rituals. Interesting. Klein leaned back into his chair and extended his spirituality to make contact with the black circular hole. Silently, his vision changed. The long bronze table and the crimson star overlapped with the spacious room which was illuminated with candlelight, becoming distinct once again. At this moment, Klein felt that a mirror had become an extension of his body or eye. It allowed him to clearly see and interfere with the real world despite being above the gray fog. Yes, clearly. All the objects in Klein's vision no longer looked blurry as they appeared distinctly in his eyes. His gaze suddenly froze for 2 seconds. In front of him was a golden-laced, white-dressed lady. Her long blonde hair was casually tied up as they smoothly and luxuriantly flowed down. Her emerald eyes reflected a somewhat palish flame, looking as deep as the ocean and also as pure as a gemstone. Her facial features and the shape of her face were matched with a stunning beauty. Her bearing and elegance were clear and pure. Klein shifted his gaze away as he felt guilty for some baffling reason. I nearly imagined her to be a demoness of quite a high sequence. Thankfully, I recalled in time that Miss Justice is a beyonder of the spectator pathway. It's impossible for her to become a demoness. The smell of this extract isn't bad. Very unique. It has a very subtle feeling. The mystical item created from that faceless beyonder characteristic? Miss Justice made it into a necklace. Klein's gaze landed on the mystical item which was disguised as a diamond necklace. Then, he heard Miss Justice say with utmost anticipation, "Mirror, mirror, please tell me the location of the owner of this notebook." Audrey knew that she was asking Mr. Fool, but "Mirror, mirror," were words she had always wanted to recite from the stories she had heard from a young age. She finally had a chance to use it in practice. The failures in the past don't count. Yes. Audrey nodded inwardly. Klein instantly looked at the black notebook placed between Miss Justice and the candle. He discovered that his spirituality could easily spread out with the help of the mirror. He could hold the divination medium as though he was using his hand. Above the gray fog, he quickly wrote the corresponding divination statement. The location of the original owner of the notebook. With one hand holding the notebook and another hand holding the piece of paper, Klein recited as he leaned back in his chair. With the help of cogitation, he quickly fell into a deep sleep. Audrey looked at the mirror intently with her emerald eyes, awaiting Mr. Fool's reply. After a few seconds, she saw ripples being produced on the mirror's surface. It's a success. Magic mirror divination really works. Audrey's eyes widened as they reflected the scenes flashing inside the mirror. It was a view of a village from above. The scene zoomed in as the dragon drawings on the various buildings gradually turned clear. A cathedral quickly occupied the mirror in its entirety before being replaced by the cemetery attached by it. Finally, the scene was fixed on a tombstone in a corner. On it were words that had turned blurry as a result of the elements. The only thing that could still be discerned was the name, Lindalira. At this moment, the mirror suddenly darkened before restoring to normal. It reflected Audrey and the candle in front of her once again. Isn't this the village which had the customs of dragon worship? The knight who wrote the notebook is named Lindalira, and is from that village. He returned to his hometown after the loss of the 20-year war and stayed there until his death? Or was he sent back to his hometown as a corpse? That village is in Eastchester County. Stone City is also part of Eastchester County, so it's very understandable that the notebook which Associate Professor Michel obtained stems from there. There's indeed a mind dragon living in the sea of collective subconscious over there. Feeling enlightened, Audrey thanked Mr. Fool and ended the magic mirror divination. Under the candlelight's illumination, she stared at the notebook for a moment before deciding to hand it over. She wanted to know what the psychology alchemists would divine or figure out. At the very least, the present me lacks the strength to come into contact with that mind dragon. That's all I can do. Besides, even if the psychology alchemists really discover anything and benefits from it, once I slowly rise up the ranks in the organization, some of that will belong to me. Audrey's mood very quickly turned positive once again. Above the gray fog, Klein rapped the corner of the long bronze table. With Miss Justice's description, he made his judgment. The notebook and the village had something to do with the dragon, and dragons often implied treasure. What a pity. Miss Justice's strength is lacking, otherwise, I would have encouraged her to explore it and pray to the sea god, if something happens while I provide support to her via various means. Yes, it's too dangerous for her. It can only be set aside for now. If the psychology alchemists didn't discover anything, perhaps we can attempt it in the future. Klein suppressed his regret as he recalled the experience of the magic mirror divination. This kind of divination is extremely advantageous for the third party. There's almost no price to be paid to connect to the real world. If I so wished, I could have torn out of the mirror in my spirit body form. But to the user, it's indeed dangerous. They will appear under the sights of an unknown existence without any protection. From there, they can be possessed, controlled, cursed, and corrupted. Klein sighed from the bottom of his heart. He wasn't worried that Miss Justice would abuse magic mirror divination, as she had the best and safest target to pray to. There was no need for her to seek anyone else. And that would be me. Klein retracted his finger and sat at the end of the long bronze table and waited in silence for 20 to 30 seconds. Soon, he returned to the real world. He didn't stay too long since he was on the future. There was someone watching him from the dark. After leaving the bathroom and putting away Azek's copper whistle and Will Ossepton's paper crane, Klein glanced at the crimson moon which had been shrouded by clouds as he pondered silently for a moment. He put on his half-top hat, pulled open the door, and went into the corridor. After taking a few steps forward, Klein deliberately slowed his footsteps and glanced at the first room on the left through the corner of his eye. Based on his judgment, the mysterious pair of eyes that were silently observing him and the deck during the day was in that room. Klein walked slower and slower as he nearly stopped in front of the door. He didn't hide the extension of his left palm as he reached for the handle when scenes naturally surfaced in his mind. Not far behind the door was a clothes rack with nothing hanging on it. Faint starlight scattered across the clean floorboards. There was a sense of solitude and serenity that lacked the aura of humans. The windows had opened at some point in time as the sea breeze blew in from the outside, lifting the curtains which weren't too heavy. There's no one there? Klein had planned on probing the area, but he immediately retracted his left palm and walked towards the stairs as though nothing had happened. When he arrived on the deck and was taking in the cold night breeze, Klein strolled on the starboard with a cold and casual expression, as though his main goal was to come out for a stroll. Suddenly, he saw a man sitting ahead of him. The man was wearing dungarees and a white shirt. Frankly? Klein didn't stop as he approached. The man sensed something as he turned his body halfway around to look at the person approaching. He was none other than poison expert Frankly, but he no longer wore a smile. Streaming down the corner of his mouth was blood-red liquid. Klein pricked up his brows without saying a word. Frankly suddenly raised his hands and grabbed a silver-scaled fish that wasn't struggling. He said in depression, "It failed. Their lifespan is shorter than I imagined. It's impossible to breed them, even if they are planted in the ground." As he spoke, he raised the silver-scaled fish in his right hand and bit down on it. "That's good. Otherwise, I'm really afraid of the kind of abominations you would create." "So, you are drowning your sorrows with alcohol, no fish?" Klein silently heaved a sigh of relief.